So Svadhyaya is a part of these 10 moral principles that are very ancient called Yama Niyama. And so the yamas have to do with the way that you relate to others, to the world, and niyama has to do with things that you self-cultivate. And so Svadhyaya has to do with the clear understanding of spiritual ideas. And why is that important? It has to do with study. It essentially has to do with having a firm intellectual foundation so that on the one hand, you aren't misled, but on the other hand, you also aren't conducting a kind of spirituality that pushes people away instead of making you stand in solidarity with. And there are so many examples of this throughout history. Like if you were to take a concept like karma, for example, you could easily misconstrue that idea if you don't understand its underlying concepts to say, if a poor person is suffering in the streets, it must be because they did bad karma. So why should I have to help? And that is an easy way that you can justify, the kind of exploitations that you see in society. And I would say that this has been prevalent in just about every religion that's ever existed, north, south, east, and west. And so Svadhyaya, which is about really trying to understand the underlying spirit of these very deep philosophical ideas, it's almost like creating sort of guideposts for yourself, intellectual guideposts for yourself, so that you keep yourself on a firm footing and don't find yourself being led astray by really destructive ideas. If you're practicing a spirituality or a religion that oppresses women, or that reinforces a kind of caste system in your society, or it makes you feel like you're better than somebody else because of your beliefs or your practices. I meditate, therefore I, vibrate at a higher frequency than other people, and that makes me better than them. Ideas like these go counter to the very spirit of what spirituality is ostensibly supposed to be about in the first place. Spirituality is about recognizing unity in diversity. It's about going to a place that is so deep within the ground of your own being that you recognize how you are totally intrinsically connected and embedded with nature, with others, with other people, with all the species of this living creation. And when you develop that spirit and when you develop that kind of also intellectual understanding, then it becomes very easy to see when there are ideas or political concepts or ideologies that are really just meant to benefit a few people at the expense of the many, or are about essentially allowing exploitation or oppression to go unchecked. If you have an idea from a book that, let me rephrase that. If you come with an understanding that human beings even are superior to all the rest of creation, then you're going to start to feel that nature is something outside of you, that animals and plants are there for the exploitation and use of human wants and desires. And you see the consequences of this, right now in the 21st century. The ecological catastrophes that we're facing are a pretty logical consequence of this sort of deformed worldview. And so spirituality, in its essence, any mystical practice, which is about attaining a sense of unity with a deeper self within and recognizing that self in the other, in the so-called other. By its very nature, it's going to run countervalent to these sorts of divisive ideas, whether they're divisive along lines of sex or race or cultural background or religious affiliation or species. All of these go totally against what any internal intuitive practice is going to be about. And so Svadhyaya is about the 1% theory that is important to spiritual practice. Spiritual practice is 99% practice, 1% theory. But that 1% theory is extremely important because it gives you that foundation that everything else can be built upon.